The next technique that I'd like to talk about is multiphonics. And as you may have guessed, multiphonics mean more than one note at the same time. Now the flute is an instrument that is actually very capable of making more than one note at the same time, just like the other instruments in the woodwind family. I'm gonna start by demonstrating a few different multiphonics on the concert C flute. As you can tell, the three different multiphonics I made have different qualities in them. The first one is the wide interval multiphonic that is more than an octave wide. And this particular multiphonic, it's generally speaking easier to make, and you can play this type of wide interval multiphonic different dynamic levels. So it can go from very quiet to very loud. Whereas the second and third types are the more narrow types, multiphonics. And these ones typically only work for a dynamic level that is mezzo piano and below. Because if I try to play too loud, then it won't maintain the two notes simultaneously. The lower of the two notes tend to just disappear. So I try to play a little bit louder, the low note is just gone. So it's not too practical. Now let's hear the multiphonics on a bigger flute like the alto. I would argue that the multiphonics actually work better on the bigger flutes like alto flute and bass flute. Now, how about multiphonics on the piccolo? I would argue that for sure it's more difficult to sustain these, especially smaller interval multiphonics on the piccolo. Now, there are literally more than 1,000 different multiphonics available to the flute, but not every multiphonic that you can imagine will work. So it's very important that you, as composers, work with the flute player and see whether it will work on his or her own instruments, especially if you want to write multiphonics for alto flute, bass flute, or piccolo, because these flutes are not constructed in a standardized way. So it depends on the brand and the make of the instruments. It may work on one brand flute and may not work on a different brand. So it's very important to consult the individual flute player that you want the piece to be played by. Now, as for resources, I would highly suggest that you check out this incredible book by Robert Dick called The Other Flute, because he provides us flute players and composers with a wide variety of multiphonic possibilities, with fingerings notated as well. And he also wrote this equally incredible book called Tone Development Through Extended Techniques. also providing us with all sorts of different fingerings and possibilities for multiphonics. He also notated which multiphonic is more stable, which multiphonic can play which dynamic level, so it's a super useful resource for both flute players and composers alike.